Let's end by looking at a curious phenomenon. You may remember that Earl Browder was the head of the American Communist Party. And I think it's his grandson then went to Moscow and became a very successful investor, is now living in the UK. And his son, Alexander, is now in the news. His 17-year-old son has been placed on a sanctions list by Russia because he wrote a paper for the Henry M. Jackson Society, which exists in the United Kingdom. And apparently this paper delves into Russia's use of a stable coin to promote criminal activity. What does it say that Russia felt compelled, or Putin felt compelled, to put a teenager on the sanctions list? What does that tell us about Russia?
Well, I think it's a wonderful story. It's a heartwarming story indeed, that this 17-year-old kid could dig up, the goods on Russian nefarious activity overseas. I think it is a very good example of how fragile the Russian system inherently is. Over the years, we've seen what are called open source intelligence communities dig up all kinds of extraordinarily sensitive information about the Russians. Why? Because Russia is very, very corrupt. Everything is available on the black market. These organizations have been able to buy up cell phone lists and, vehicle registrations and all kinds of very useful information that when you, correlate it and put it together, you can actually track the movements of Russian secret police operatives and their doings inside Russia. Absolutely extraordinary, but it's doable if you have the resources and the time, precisely because the Russian system has created all these loopholes that enable people to look in and see what they're doing. Because it is a very chaotic, messy state. Putin has produced certainly a kind of stability, but there's a fundamental volatility to Russian society he's never been able to completely tame, right? And I, as somebody who lived in Russia for 7 years, not counting another year spent in the former Soviet Union, I have this very strong sense that some of the seams are coming undone, that some things are just not working very well, and that those inherent weaknesses are really starting to manifest themselves in dramatic ways. So I really do feel all bets are off, and again, with my example of East Germany, change does not, it doesn't only, in these authoritarian societies, change doesn't necessarily creep up on you steadily. What happens is you come to a tipping point and the whole thing goes south incredibly quickly, right? That's the thing about the inherent, I think, vulnerability of these states. So it could, Russia could muddle through for another few years. Putin might buy time with a Stalinist crackdown. But I have the sense that, it's getting harder and harder to keep things going as they are. And at some point, they may just hit a wall.
Thank you, Christian.
It's my pleasure.